Welcome back to my channel Chemistry Made Simple for NEET. I am Dr. Lakshmi Subramaniam with a PhD in Chemistry. I hope you all watched my previous sessions of Chapter 14 Class 12 Chemistry. Please check the link given in the description box for those who haven't watched these videos. Please do like, share and subscribe to my channel. In today's video, we are going to do a quick revision of Chapter 16, Class 12. Name of the unit is Chemistry in Everyday Life. Now, without wasting our time, let us continue with our session. You know, the principles of chemistry have been used for the benefit of humans for a long time. And thinking about cleanliness, the materials like soaps, detergents, household bleaches, toothpaste, everything around you, and the beautiful clothes which are made of chemicals of synthetic fibers and food materials, you all know this, that is the benefits of chemistry in our everyday life. Now, thinking about sickness and diseases, we know about medicines. Chemistry has influenced our life so much. We are going to have a quick look at the application of chemistry in three important areas. First one is medicines, second is food materials, and third is cleansing agent. And first, we are going to discuss about drugs. You all have heard about the word drugs. What are drugs? Drugs are the chemicals of low molecular masses which interact with molecular targets and produce a biological response. So, you can see here that I have given a simple and easy to understand description about the drugs. So, drugs are mainly natural, or it can also be of synthetic origin, and we use drugs which are chemicals for curing diseases and in that way reducing our sufferings from pain. So, these are either called as drugs or medicines. And what is a drug actually? It is a chemical substance and it cures our diseases, but it is habit forming, means it causes addiction and it has got serious side effects. And about medicine, it is also a chemical substance. It cures the disease, but it is safe to use and it has negligible toxicity, that is poison content, and it does not cause any addiction. So, just remember the difference between drug and medicine. Now, moving on to the classification of drugs. Drugs can be classified in a number of ways. So, we are showing the major classifications here. The first one is on the basis of pharmacological effect. So, what is meant by pharmacological effect? That is, it's very useful to doctors and it provides a range of variety of drugs which is available for treatment of a particular type of problem. For example, all of you know that you might have got some stomach related problems, and so for that a common problem, and we have analgesics which gives pain killing effect. And secondly, on the basis of drug action, that is the action of a drug on a particular biochemical process. All antihistamines which inhibit the action of the compound is one example. Now, the third classification is on the basis of chemical structures. So, the drugs are classified so that they share some common structural features, as you can see in the figure given here, structure, and they have similar pharmacological activity. For example, you can see sulfonamides, they all have common structural feature. You can just have a close look at the structure given here. And the next one, the fourth classification, is on the basis of molecular targets. That is, drugs usually, what do? They interact with biomolecules like lipids and proteins. Already we learned about lipids, proteins and all in our units biochemistry, biomolecules. So, those who haven't seen those sessions can go back to the session and watch it again. So, these are called target molecules or drug targets. So, the drugs which interact with biomolecules like lipids and proteins are called target molecules or drug targets. And some drugs possess common structural features and it also have the same mechanism of action on targets. So now we have done with the classification of the drugs, and what is meant by drug target interaction? It's a very important concept. That is, macromolecules or biomolecules of biological origin, it performs various functions in the body. That is, proteins, they perform the role of biological catalysts. We have got chemical and biological catalysts, but proteins act as biological catalysts in the body and they are called enzymes. And secondly, some proteins are very crucial to the communication system in our body. They are called receptors. So receptors are proteins which are crucial to communication system in our body. Then the third one, it's carrier proteins. The proteins which carry polar molecules across the membranes. So polar molecules are carried across the membranes by carrier proteins. Now enzymes also act as drug target. So we all learnt about the catalytic action of enzymes. That is, enzymes, some of the enzymes act as catalysts, biological catalysts. So the first function of enzyme, what does it do? You can see in the figure that in the figure given ABC, B is the substrate. So the substrate is held in its position by the enzyme, and active sites of enzymes hold the substrate molecule in a suitable position, as you can see in figure C. So that what happens if it is kept hold in one position, the reagent can attack it effectively. So in order to make the attack by the reagent effectively, it is held in the position, or the substrate is held in the suitable position by enzymes. So that is the first function. And what is the second function? So it provides functional groups that will attack the substrate and which will in turn carry out the chemical reaction. So the enzymes helps to carry out the chemical reaction by providing suitable functional groups which will attack the substrate. So these are the two important functions of or the catalytic action of enzymes. Hope you understood this clearly. Now moving on to the next topic, which is receptors as drug targets. We earlier looked at the enzymes can act as catalyst and receptors. So what are receptors? Receptors are also proteins which is very important to the communication system in the body. So most of these receptors are just kept embedded in the cell membrane in such a way that only a small part which has the active site will project out of the membrane surface and it opens in the outside region of the cell membrane. You can see that in the figure. You can see the outer surface of the cell membrane and then the interior of the cell, and this is a figure or the structure of an animal cell, and the first part of the figure shows the small part of the cell membrane or plasma membrane. So receptors act as drug targets. Now next is we will go through the different types of drugs. So this is very important, the type of drugs. The first one is antacid. You might all be familiar with the word antacid. So what are antacids? You know, the excess acid in our stomach is neutralized by certain substances and they raise the pH to an appropriate level in the stomach. So most commonly used antacids are sodium bicarbonate, magnesium hydroxide, etc. And other important drugs are cimetidine and ranitidine. And we also use it in the name of Rantac and all that, which are produced by different companies. So recently used drugs are omeprazole, lansoprazole, etc. The structure is given here. Maybe they will give you the structure and ask the name of the drug. So you have to be familiar with the structure. Okay, now the next what you are going to learn is that, you know, we said that receptors carry the important function of communication, or in the body the message between two neurons and between neurons to muscles is communicated through chemicals known as chemical messengers which are received at the binding sites of receptor proteins. So, the messengers are received at a particular site. Now, there should be some place to receive the receptor proteins which are known as the binding site. So, in order to accommodate a messenger, you can see in the first figure, the messenger is coming to or approaching a binding site of a cell, and in the second figure you can see that once the messenger approaches the binding site, what happens is that to accommodate the messenger, the shape of the receptor site will change, and as a result the transfer of message into the cell happens, and then after this process the chemical messenger again gives message to the cell without entering the cell, and you can see that the receptor is regaining the structure after removal of the chemical messenger. So, you understood this well, I think, and you read it again and again and refer to the diagram as well. And drug enzyme interaction. So, the interaction of drug and enzyme. Normally, what does the drug do? It inhibits or it stops the attachment of the substrate on the active site of enzymes, which is done in two ways. The first way is that the drugs will compete with the natural substrate for their attachment in the active sites. So, these drugs are called competitive inhibitors. You can see the active site and the enzyme, and what is the drug doing? The drug and the substrate, they will compete with each other for the active site, and the drug blocks the active site of the enzyme. And now some drugs do not bind into the active site of the enzyme. These bind to a different site of the enzyme. That site is called allosteric site. Notice this is very important, and from this part you get questions for NEET. And of course, I have included all the important questions of NEET as MCQs in the coming videos, which I will be uploading shortly. So, this binding of the inhibitor at the allosteric site, it changes the shape of the active site in such a way that the substrate cannot recognize it, because only if the substrate doesn't recognize the site, it won't approach the site. So, that is how the drug prevents or inhibits the attachment of the substrate to the active site. Okay, now next we come across a different type of anti-fertility drugs. Chemical substances are used to check pregnancy in women. These are called anti-fertility drugs or birth control pills or oral contraceptives. And what do they do actually? They control the female menstrual cycle and ovulation. By doing this, they are able to check or prevent pregnancies. And some of the commonly used pills, it contains mainly a mixture of norethindrone, that is progesterone derivative, and novestrol or ethinylestradiol, which is an estrogen. That is novestrol or ethinylestradiol, that is an estrogen. So, all such drugs are expected to have side effects. It should not be used without proper medical advice. You can see the structure of norethindrone in the first chart and ethinylestradiol in the second chart. Because as I said earlier, you should remember the structures, because after giving the structures, they can ask you the chemical names for the NEET exam. Now, next one is very important. It is antihistamines. So, many persons, they are highly hypersensitive or sensitive to certain drugs, dust, pollen grains, cat fur, dog fur, etc. We call it allergy. And why it is happening? Because certain substance called histamine is released in the body when the body comes into contact with such substances. So, certain drugs are there which interfere with the natural action of histamine by competing with, they will compete with histamine for binding sites of the receptor, and histamine exerts its effects. They are called antihistamines or anti-allergic drugs. Many people are allergic to drugs, so they are not able to take common drugs. So, for such people, firstly they will give anti-allergic drugs, and only then the actual drug is administered, so that the people don't get allergic to the particular drug. So, which are the antihistamines that are widely used? First one is bromophenidamine, which is also known as Dimetapp and Dimetapp, or terfenadine, Seldane. and you can notice this, I have included the structure also for you to refer. And next one is antimicrobials. So certain drugs are used to cure diseases caused by microbes or microorganisms like bacteria, viruses, fungi, etc. You know, many diseases are caused by microbes or microorganisms like bacteria, virus. So we use certain drugs for the treatment of such diseases, which we call it antimicrobials. Now antibiotics are chemical substances which, when administered or given in low concentration, they either will kill or stop the growth of microorganisms by interfering or intervening in their metabolic process. So you must all know the first antibiotic was penicillin, and the structure of penicillin is given in the figure for you to refer. So remember, the first antibiotic was penicillin. Now we will look at the different types of antibiotics. So first is bactericidal, which we have got penicillin, aminoglycosides or streptomycin. All these you might have learnt in biology, and ofloxacin. And bacteriostatic type, we have erythromycin, tetracycline, then chloramphenicol. So these three, erythromycin, tetracycline and chloramphenicol. So these three are bacteriostatic type of antibiotics. So you know, the full range of microorganisms attacked by an antibiotic, we call it its spectrum. So antibiotics which kill or stop a wide range of gram-positive and gram-negative bacteria are called broad spectrum antibiotic. So what is meant by gram-positive bacteria? Gram-positive bacteria has thick peptidoglycan, and it has no outer lipid membrane. So gram-negative has thin peptidoglycan, and then it has an outer lipid membrane as well. So antibiotics can kill or stop the growth of such bacteria, and we call these broad spectrum antibiotics. Negative bacteria are called broad spectrum antibiotics. Example, chloramphenicol and ofloxacin. Then some bacteria which are effective mainly against gram-positive or gram-negative bacteria are called narrow spectrum antibiotics. So the penicillin and all comes under narrow spectrum antibiotics. Some antibiotics which are effective against a single organism or disease are called limited spectrum antibiotics. So I hope you understand the different types of antibiotics clearly. Always remember the examples, and it's very important for the exam point of view. Now neurologically active drugs. So these are very familiar drugs, mainly tranquilizers. I don't think anyone who will be there who hasn't heard the name tranquilizers. So many people have stress, fatigue and mild or severe mental diseases. So these people are treated by using a drug, and we call it tranquilizer. What do they do, tranquilizers? They will relieve anxiety, stress, irritability, etc., and they'll give a sense of well-being and a small amount of drowsiness or sleepiness as well. Suppose a person suffers from depression, so we use antidepressant drugs in such cases. Some important antidepressant drugs are iproniazid and phenylcysteine. So these two I have given the structure in the figure given below for your reference. So just learn the topic about tranquilizers, then antidepressant drugs, etc., and their examples, of course. Now we'll learn about chemicals in food. So out of the three important topics, we learned the application of chemistry in medicines. Now we are going to learn the application of chemistry in food. So we add chemicals to food to improve its keeping qualities, appearance, taste, odor, nutritive value. We call them food additives. So some important additives of food are food colors, flavors and sweetener, fat emulsifiers and stabilizing agents, flavor improvers and staling agent and bleaches, antioxidants, preservatives, the nutritional supplement like minerals, vitamins and amino acid. So these are the chemicals we add to food to improve the qualities. And next, what are analgesics? So in between we were talking about the drugs. Analgesic are neurologically active drugs. They will reduce or abolish pain without causing any impairment or any problem to our consciousness, mental confusion, incoordination of or paralysis or some other disturbance or disorder of the nervous system. So we have got two categories of analgesics. First one is non-narcotic or non-addictive analgesics. So these are medications used to control pain and inflammation. Non-narcotic are used to treat acute or persistent pain which is mild to moderate, and in combination with other medications or therapy they can also be used to treat severe pain. And then example are aspirin, then Motrin or Advil, ibuprofen, that is one common drug prescribed by doctors, and Aleve or naproxen. So that is naproxen sodium. These are the common drugs used for the purpose. Now antiseptics and disinfectants. Antiseptics are actually chemical substances. It will prevent the growth of microorganisms and even kill them, and they are safe to be applied to living tissues. We commonly use Dettol, you might have seen, because every household contains Dettol of course, and it's a mixture of chlorosilenol and terpineol, and example furacin, soframycin, etc. Then disinfectants, certain chemicals they kill microorganisms but they are not safe to be applied to living tissues. So usually they are applied to inanimate objects like physical objects, floors, drainage system. Example is 1% solution of phenol. It works as a disinfectant. Mostly we use it in hospitals and industries and all that. It has 0.2 to 0.4 ppm in aqueous solution of chlorine and low concentration of sulfur dioxide, which are disinfectants. Then artificial sweetening agents. It's a very useful chemical in the food industry, and mainly sucrose and fructose. These two are widely used natural sweetener, and they add to our calorie. That is the disadvantage, and they promote tooth decay, spoil our teeth quickly. So to avoid these problems, many people take artificial sweeteners, but important artificial sweeteners, it is saccharin, but it's not good for the health. Sulfobenzimide. It is the first most popular artificial sweetener used as a sweetening agent, but it is insoluble in water and it is sold in the market as a soluble sodium or calcium salt. So from each and every line you can get questions as objective type. That is why we included all the important descriptions in the video, so that you will be familiar with all these questions and be able to answer very well. And it is about 550 times sweeter than sugar. So actually it's very sweet. So kids and all, they like it a lot. So usually they add it to junk food and all that. So it's not good for the health. So the structure of the saccharin is shown in the structure given below. Now aspartame, that is one of the most successful and widely used artificial sweetener, 100 times as sweet as sucrose. But what happens is that if you cook it or bake it, it will decompose. So you can use it only with cold foods and soft drinks. The structure is given. You have to just go through it. There are two parts. One is phenyl alanine methyl ester part and aspartic acid part. Then what is aspartame? Then allitame, that is similar to aspartame itself, but it's more stable than aspartame. So aspartame is the most successfully used by artificial sweetener, whereas allitame that is more stable than aspartame and 2000 times, whereas 100 times stable as glucose, but this is 2000 times as sweet as sucrose. Then anionic detergents. So when you come about the third part of the application of chemistry, so we went through studied about the first two parts, and the second part was food materials. Third one is cleansing agents, where detergents come under this. We have got anionic detergents and cationic detergents. Anionic detergents are also called so because a large volume of their molecules are anions. So this part, that is the anionic part of the detergent, gets involved in the cleaning or cleansing action. So what are they actually? They are sodium salts of sulfonated long chain alcohols or hydrocarbons. You can see in the figure, lauryl alcohol in presence of concentrated sulfuric acid first gives lauryl hydrogen sulfate. Then again when you treat with NaOH, sodium hydroxide solution, we get sodium lauryl sulfate, which is the anionic detergent. Cationic detergents are quaternary ammonium salts of amines with acetates, chlorides or bromides as anions. You can see that the positive part which is given inside the square brackets, which has got 3 CH3 groups attached to the nitrogen, and to the left side of nitrogen we have CH3, CH2 15 times, and bromine is the negative ion, and then this is cetyl trimethyl ammonium bromide, the name of this detergent. Now what are narcotic analgesics? So certain medications, they imitate the activity of endorphins. These are the substances produced by the body which controls pain. And narcotics are used to control very sharp and severe pain related to surgery and other medical procedures, and also for chronic or continuous persistent pains, and it is a breakthrough pain that is moderate to severe. To treat those we are using narcotic analgesics. Then morphine, you might have heard of that, and many of its homologs, when you administer it in medical doses, they relieve pain and it gives comfortable sleep. But in poisonous doses they produce stupor, coma and even untimely death, and ultimately it results in death, which is very serious. Example of this is morphine, which is also known as Roxanol, then codeine, dolophine, which is also known as methadone, heroin, etc. The structure is given for your reference. So all of this has got commonly NCH3 group, and the structure is important. Just go through it so that you are able to distinguish or identify the structure. Now passing on to synthetic detergents, and these are called soapless soaps. They are agents, cleaning agents. They have got all the properties of soaps, but they do not contain any soap. So these are synthetic substances, that is artificially made substances. So they are also called synthetic detergents or detergents. So detergents are defined as ammonia sulfate salts of long chain hydrocarbons. They have 12 to 18 carbon atoms, so which is very great in number. We have got different types of detergents. Mainly we are going through 3 types. Already we saw anionic detergents, cationic detergents and non-ionic detergents. They do not have any detergent in it. Now we are talking about food preservatives, chemical substances used to protect food against bacteria, yeast and molds. So common preservatives we use in our kitchen are mainly sodium benzoate. It's used in soft drinks and acidic food. Then sodium metabisulfate, used as preservative for products like jams, squashes, pickles, etc. So that it's got a long shelf life. It doesn't get spoiled very easily because you are using the preservative. Then sorbic acid and its salts, mainly used to control the growth of yeast and mold in products like baked food, cheese and all that. Epoxides, highly effective in preserving low moisture food, mainly used for preservation of spices, nuts and dried foods. Then P, hydroxybenzoate esters. They have no perceptible effect on flavor. They are only good in stopping the growth of molds and yeast, but it is less effective on bacteria. So you have to know each of the points and each of the function of the preservatives. It is good for what and less effective. They will pinpoint and ask which one is less effective on bacteria. So you should be able to remember all these points. Now cleansing agents, we already said that it is natural or synthetic substances used to help in cleaning process, mainly the removal of dirt and dust and all that. So mostly the chemical substances concentrate on the surface of the solution to form surface films. So what happens due to these films? They reduce the surface tension of the solution and they help in moving dirt and dust by forming some emulsifying grease. They are called surface active agents or surfactant. So This surfactant or active agent, it has got two groups. I think you've studied something from this on class 10 portions. So one is oil loving lipophilic and other is water loving hydrophilic group. So two types are there. One is soap and synthetic detergents, which we have learned or gone through already. And soaps are important. They are sodium or potassium salts of higher fatty acids like palmitic acid, stearic acid, oleic acid, lauric acid, etc. How is soap manufactured, or how do we make soap? We just heat some fat or oil with sodium hydroxide solution. This process is very important. You might have learned this before, which is known as saponification. You can see the figure of saponification. Tristyrene, or it is glyceryl ester of stearic acid. You can see the structure repeating thrice, that is COO C17H35. Then top we are having CH2 top and bottom, middle layer is CH. When you add 3 molecules of NaOH and heat it, we get sodium stearate, that is the soap actually, that is C17H35 from the right side, which combines with COO in the middle and Na of NaOH. Then the OH gets attached to OH of NaOH gets attached to the left side, that is CH2OH, CHOH and CH2OH, which is the formula for glycerol. This is very important process, and don't forget it. Now, what are the different types of soaps? So many types of soaps are there. Toilet soaps, which is prepared by grades of fats and oils, and then we are removing the excess of alkali. Floating soaps, prepared by beating tiny air bubbles into the product before their hardening. So you have a floating quality. Then transparent soap, you might have seen like soaps like Pears and all that. So you have to dissolve the soap in ethanol and then evaporating the excess solvent. Medicated soaps, they are prepared by adding antiseptics like Dettol, Savlon, etc. Shaving soaps, they contain glycerol to prevent rapid drying. So preparing, we add a gum called rosin, and then it forms sodium rosinate, which will help good lathering. Then laundry soaps contains fillers like sodium rosinate, sodium silicate, borax, sodium carbonate, etc. Then soap chips are made by running a thin sheet of metal soap, melted soap onto a cool cylinder and scraping off it in small broken pieces. So you run a thin sheet of melted soap to a cool cylinder, then scraping the small broken pieces, you get soap chips. Then soap granules are dried miniature soap bubbles. And finally soap powder and scouring soaps, they contain some soap as scouring agent like powdered pumice or finely divided sand. So we went through so many types of soaps. You read each one of it carefully and try to recollect all the points and the methods of preparation. And then what are non-ionic detergents? They do not contain any ion, and mainly one example is the one which is formed when stearic acid reacts with polyethylene glycol. So you can see the formula there. One water molecule is removed and the remaining addition product is formed. It is used for liquid dishwashing detergents which are non-ionic. Then the mechanism of cleansing action is same as that of soaps itself. So then we will move on to enzyme inhibitors, that is the drugs that inhibit the function of enzymes. I explained this portion already, but here you are having a more clear diagram of the enzyme substrate and the enzyme holding substrate. And then competitive inhibitors, they will fight for the active site and get attached to the active site. The non-competitive inhibitor will attach to some other site called the allosteric site and change shape of active site. I explained all of it clearly, but again I just wanted to do a quick recap so that you will remember it again well. Now finally, communication process. Receptors are proteins which are important for body's communication, and chemical messengers, what do? They carry message between two neurons and between two neurons to muscles, and these chemicals help to carry the communication throughout the body. Then the receptors are selective, that is for one chemical messenger over the other, because binding site, it depends on the shapes of the binding site. The binding sites have different shape, structure and amino acid composition. So based on that, the receptors would be selective. And again, antagonists, certain drugs bind to the receptor site and inhibit the natural function, that is useful in blocking the message. Then agonists, I already said that the drugs which imitate the natural messenger by switching on the receptor, and it is useful when there is no chemical messenger. You can see in figure 16.5, receptor receiving chemical messenger. When the chemical messenger is coming to the binding site, the shape of the receptor changed after the attachment of messenger in the center figure, and finally when the receptor, it regains the structure when you remove the when the chemical messenger is removed. So I hope these portions are all very clear for you, and those who don't wish to read the NCERT textbook of 12 CBSE, have carefully taken all the important topics and have selected everything, so that you will find all the topics, important topics are covered in my video, and you will get the important questions in the form of MCQs, which is extremely useful for those who are preparing for NEET. I will be uploading this after I finish this session. And now I have attached some footnotes at the end of the session, so that you can just go through it, and you can again revise it, and those who want, you can take a printout of these lessons unit wise and keep it as a file, so that it becomes handy when the exam approaches. You just need to make a quick revision of all these notes. As I already told you in my intro video, my daughter, actually she is a second year MBBS aspirant, and she just learned chemistry. She did after learning all the lessons and the concepts, final revisions, she did just this way as per my guidance, and she got a very around 43 questions correct out of 45 for the NEET exam for chemistry. And so I assure that if you can go through all these sessions and do quick revision, revise all the MCQs, and be thorough with the textbook chapters, then there is no looking back for you. So finally, I just want to share something with you, that coaching will help you to achieve your goal in every stage of your life. But coaching without self-study, it doesn't work at all. No, self-study guided and monitored by a coaching teacher will surely help you to crack your NEET exam. You must study and practice at home to achieve the desired result and to achieve your dream. And always you work hard. And with that, we are coming to the end of our session today. Hope you understood the concept well, and we will be meeting again soon with another awesome session. So with that, we come to an end of our today's session.